Welcome to the Scariest Things podcast, the gateway to the trends and tropes of the horror genre. This is episode 189, and it is time to talk about the Criterion Collection. We are going to be total movie snobs for this episode. I'm your host, Eric Lee, and I am joined, as always, by
Mike Campbell.
And from New Orleans,
Liz Williams.
So
we're classing it up.
That's right. This is
classing it up.
I didn't
Finally.
know it had to be classy.
Yeah, none of my films are classy. I picked the least classy of all the Criterion Collection films.
Oh, I had one that was super trashy. I don't know if I want to talk about it's a fallback position, but
Okay.
I've got one that is so bad it's good. Criterion. It's like, how did this thing make on a Criterion?
Well,
and then you watch let's go through the criteria for the Criterion, Liz.
So the Criterion Collection's mission statement is, since 1984, the Criterion Collection has been dedicated to publishing important classic and contemporary films from around the world in editions that offer the highest technical quality and award-winning original supplements. No matter the medium, from laserdisc to Blu-ray to DVD to Ultra 4K HD streaming, Criterion has maintained its pioneering commitment to preserving each film as its maker would want it seen, in state-of-the-art restoration with special features designed to encourage repeated watching and deepen the viewer's appreciation of the art of film. Nowhere in there did they say it had to be classy.
That's right.
Holy moly. Well, and the thing that's interesting is there are only, technically, there are only 70 Criterion Collection films that qualify as horror. There's only...
Oh, I was going to say, not on the...
There are...
Mike, I think you looked up the wrong thing.
There's 1,650 Criterion Collections Criterion Collection films as of this year. They only enter about 50 to 60 a year. Yep. That's it. Because part of it is they go through, as Liz just mentioned, they go through an extensive criteria for the Criterion. One of the big pieces is it's got to be exemplary. That's the really the big thing. And then they work back from there. They kind of reverse engineer it and go, okay, do we have the rights? Can we get the rights? What does the licensing look like? Are any of these people still alive? How do we put together all the extras for the DVD? But yeah, it's only that's the thing that really shocked me was there's not that many Criterion Collection films out there. We talk about the Criterion like it's like this massive library, like Movie Madness has
1,700,
right? And Movie Madness has 90,000 films.
Yep.
I'm guessing they have all the Criterion Collection films, right?
They do. I think that,
yeah.
Yes, they do.
So it's 1% is Criterion.
Yeah, and I remember Criterion back when we still watched movies largely on VHS. And this was actually probably through Chris Ralph, our good friend,
right.
From college, who's a telecommunications and film major.
Because they started in 1984.
Right, and
that's when it began.
But that's what you would get is the Seven Samurai on a 12-inch laserdisc.
Mm-hmm.
Right, they were the big platters, and that's
kids. Laserdisc looked like records, but they had movies on it.
and they came in at a whopping 1080k on the definition of them. Now it's
and sometimes you had to have two discs, just
right?
like two VHSs.
Yeah.
Because they were more compact.
Yep. And then DVDs came around, and then Blu-rays have come around now. 4K Ultra, as they're saying that they've always pushed trying to get the best quality for select films. I do find it interesting, as much as I love them, the kaiju films. You can get Godzilla versus Megalon on the Criterion Collection.
Right.
Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, and it's like, I don't know if this is exactly Vertigo.
And I think they do I think those are both qualified as of the 70 horror films. I think those are two of the 70 horror films.
I think the.
I don't think Megalon is on there, but I think Godzilla is definitely on there.
I know Godzilla versus the Sea Monster was one of the options.
Yeah.
But they've got. I think the good portion of the Godzilla movies from the 60s and 70s is on there.
Right.
And
yeah.
Right. And that was because when I was looking through the horror movies, it was like, or actually, they don't even call it horror; they call them scary movies. And so
No, they have horror.
No, it's called
in their
horror.
Search
okay.
criteria.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought that what they would do is they would sort things out. It's like lots of thrillers on that.
Right.
And,
Well, and here's the thing: the Criterion, and I don't know what the interplay is, but the Criterion Collection, right, where you get the DVD, like the physical media stuff, is different than the Criterion Channel, which is where you're streaming
Correct.
stuff, right? So the stuff that
Some
you're
overlap, but some don't.
yeah, and the stuff that you're streaming is not necessarily; those aren't necessarily Criterion films. They're just films that they added to their streaming service.
Right.
So it is. There's a little bit of a distinction there, and I don't know what the actual distinction is, but
One of mine is on their streaming because
Yeah.
I really thought. Like, I looked it up. It's on their website. It's on their streaming. And then I was like, oh, but it doesn't have a DVD. So that I can't change it at the last minute. So
yeah, there you go.
their app is also incredible. It's a terrible app. Criterion people. Your channel app is garbage. I had to text my friend, how do I search on this app? She's like, I had to Google it. Yeah, like,
Now,
it's horrible.
Do either of you guys subscribe to the Criterion Channel?
No.
I don't, but I have access to
You
it.
you will as soon as they fix the app. Yeah,
It's terrible.
there we go. Liz will subscribe.
No,
Fix the app first,
There,
then the subscription will follow.
I think it's actually I think revelatory about how bad the app is. I'd say that the Criterion app is a bit masturbatory in that what they do is that they celebrate themselves so much.
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like, here's all these famous directors coming in and picking out their favorites from the catalog.
But
it's
you
like,
can't
just
find
get
the
me
damn
there.
movie.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And so it was actually a lot easier for me just to go to Movie Madness and just sort of type in Criterion and things.
I think it's nice that you use the word masturbatory as we're talking about Criterion.
Yeah, it was just it was.
That's
It's true, though. It's a very good way to describe it.
That's
was-
perfectly jejune.
Self-pleasing, as I think would be another way that these folks would they did it for themselves. They didn't do it for us.
Is masturbatorily jejune.
Yeah,
You
have
Campbell's autobiography.
so I do think though that it does have really, for the most part, really excellent films. And the hard part for us in this exercise is actually selecting movies that we haven't talked about to death, right? Or things that aren't just so well known that we don't need to necessarily talk about it. Like, it's like you could do Rosemary's Baby if you wanted to.
Right.
Or,
And honestly, of the 70 films in the Criterion Collection, I think there's only, I would say, maybe 10 that we've never given a mention to in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
all the other ones we have definitely mentioned.
Yeah, I don't think...
Definitely mentioned, definitely discussed.
I think for mine, we've mentioned but not talked in full about one of them, really.
Uh-huh.
So I tried to go a little bit outside. I was looking for things we hadn't talked about, but it's kind of hard when their horror selection is limited. Actually, two of mine are in horror.
Right.
One is in thriller.
My favorite Criterion Collection bit of trivia, and I'll see if Eric knows the answer to this question. What was the first Criterion Collection film that was selected in 1984 was Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
What was the second? And it's a horror film.
Yeah.
What was the second?
Was it Freaks?
No, but you're not far off.
Is it Nosferatu?
It's still not far off.
Okay. It's a 19...
Last guess. Last guess.
Frankenstein?
King Kong.
King Kong?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I did read that the big thing with the King Kong that they pitched was all of the extras that they jammed into it. So they had all the Willis O'Brien miniature work and
Right.
And this is the thing about and the reason why I went and got physical media for all of it is the way that you see Criterion is you want to see it with all the extras and the and
100%
the voiceovers of the people talking about the film, the critics who would or the directors would say, this is their interpretation of their film for you, the behind the scenes, all the promotional stuff in it, but it varies from film to film depending.
That's Interesting that you say that. I am not a physical media person. I also don't have a video store. So, unless I was going to get it from the library, I had to stream them all. On the Criterion channel, some of the additional materials are available for some of the films. But that, to me, like when you think Criterion, and I think Eric alluded to it with his introductory voice, you just think like art house, snotty film
Yeah.
people.
You
So
think
I'm not
Bergman,
really interested
Kurosawa.
in all the extras that they offer. I'd like to see a nice copy of the film, but it is very rare that I watch any of the extras. Is that something that you guys do?
I don't. No, I generally don't.
It depends if it's a movie that the movies that I love.
Yeah.
I know, and it's not part of the Criterion Collection, but of course, the thing for me, there have been like layers and layers of, when they do the laserdisc or the Blu-rays that they come out, they have.
And the documentary's coming out this fall.
Yeah.
The Thing documentary, yeah.
So, I mean,
I don't know. I don't know where, when, or how, but it's coming out.
Yeah. Is that our Ryan O'Felipe? Is he doing it?
No.
Oh,
No.
that's too bad. I wish he did, because that guy knows how to do a crackerjack documentary, because he approaches it from a different way thematically. His approach, but I think another one that I've watched a lot of, like Seven, would be another one that I've seen with a lot of the Fincher's commentary and all those kinds of things. It has to be a movie that that has deep meaning for me, because I'm not going to just do it for any old movie, because there's only so many films that I want to hear watch through with a voiceover on top of it. But so Liz, maybe do you want to start us off with this? Yeah,
sure. So looking through streaming, looking through their collection, decided that I would start with the first J-horror movie that I ever saw.
Let's see.
Now, this is the one that I have realized has not had a Criterion Collection physical media release, but it is part of their streaming service in the Japanese horror section, and it's Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Oh,
from
yeah.
1989
bonkers
by
movie.
Shinya Tsukamoto. And it is a bonkers movie. And you know what else? This movie is 1 hour and 7 minutes long.
Love it.
Yes,
love it.
Love it. I know.
You guys have
Talking my language.
no movie stamina.
That's my love. That's my love language right there.
You don't need more than that. If you can make this movie, okay, so here's the description from Criterion. An ordinary Japanese salesman undergoes a shocking metamorphosis in this legendary fusion of body horror and cyberpunk expressionism. A strange man known only as the metal fetishist, played by the director, who is driven by an insane compulsion to pierce his body with scrap metal, is hit and possibly killed by an office worker out for a drive with his girlfriend. Soon, the salaryman, office worker, realizes that he is being overtaken by some kind of disease that's turning his body into scrap metal, and that his nemesis is not in fact dead, but is somehow masterminding his rage and frustration-fueled transformation. And if that sounds bonkers, that's what the movie is. It's bonkers. It's body horror. It's, man becomes machine.
Yep.
And when I saw it, I probably was not sober and was like, what is this? So, because it was probably the mid-90s. And I've been a fan of J-horror ever since.
I think that's the last time I saw it. Does it hold?
Yeah,
does it hold up pretty
does
well?
Hold up.
Okay.
It's super weird. It's not as shocking as it was then. I guess that's, we're hardened and things like Terrifier now. So
right.
it takes more to scare me, but it's still cool as hell.
It's
and a nice.
But conceptually, it was. It feels kind of where art house, just like pure expressionism, hits body horror, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And in a way that seems straight out of hentai kind of things.
Yeah.
The Japanese were doing it way different than we were, and I think that's something that I was always drawn me to J-horror, is that, we might have been doing body horror here, but they're doing it, artfully, I
Yes.
guess.
Yes.
Did this?
It was cool. It was new. It was weird. It was shocking. And at the time, that's what I wanted to see.
Do you know if this
'Cause it was
director went on to
pretentious.
do any other horror work?
That is a good question. He did two other parts of Tetsuo. He
Okay.
did Bullet Ballet. Is that a? I think they're all kind of, not really horror, but the Japanese ones will go. They're Yakuza.
Yeah.
They're
Oh, yeah,
violent, hyper violent.
Right,
Snake
right.
in June. That was an erotic thriller. That was actually a really good one. I forgot about that.
But Bullet Ballet did not make the Criterion Collection.
No.
It sounds like it should have. So, what? But it is a very sort of influential movie within within J horror. In that, it's like what was the meatball machine?
Yeah.
When
Yeah,
I talked
Meatball
about that.
Uh-huh.
That is straight up an homage to a lot of the Iron Man, Tetsuo the Iron Man kind of stuff, and it's again like these cyber whacked out tentacles,
Yep.
and grafted on body parts, and where I think Tetsuo the Iron Man would drift into silliness. It took itself seriously, where some of its progeny just went for pure silly.
Right.
And we're going to go for the gross out horror aspect of it. And, I think there is still an appetite for gonzo within the Japanese. They like their dour, serious girl with wet hair, ghosty movies. And then they like wackadoodle.
Right.
Where it's like, and lots of, oversized guns and cyber eyes and
And I always think of the Japanese version of Evil Dead that came out right around the same time as Tetsuo, the bloody muscle bodybuilder in hell.
Oh, yeah, from Hell.
Yeah.
We talked about that I talked about that in Weird Tubi, I think.
Yeah. You can see you can see it on. It's available on Tubi, but it's also available on Shudder too. But I think about that too because it was like, it seemed like a time in Japan where they were just like sort of like anything goes, sort of mid '90s. Like we're just gonna get weird and wild and see what sticks.
Yeah, and so thank you, Tetsuo the Iron Man, for that. and actually because it's got to be good if it's on the Criterion Collection.
That's right.
I mean, right?
It's exemplary. It's exemplary of something.
People should watch it because it's the length of a episode of whatever you're watching on Netflix or HBO or Hulu. Like it's
right.
It's 1 hour.
Yep.
Come on, you can do it.
This first film is a film that Time Out in New York called easily one of the most subversive films ever to have ever come out of Hollywood. This, of course, is the 1966 John Frankenheimer film Seconds, starring Rock Hudson and John Randolph. This film tells the story of a middle-aged New York banker who, disillusioned with his life, contracts with an agency known as The Company, which specializes in providing rebirths under new identities, appearances that are altered by plastic surgery. And they even go so far as to alter the voice patterns in those individuals. It's an incredible film following sort of this white privileged middle class ennui of the mid 1960s. And the film starts with John Randolph, who you may know from films like Serpico and All the President's Men and a million television credits, who has fallen sort of out of love with his wife. He only on occasion sees his daughter. He is bored with his New York banking lifestyle and his perfect Connecticut home, and he decides a friend of his refers him to The Company, and he undergoes a massive reassignment of his entire life. And so then the second, or really the latter 2/3 of the film, because John Randolph only plays for about the first third of the film, he is transformed into
Rock.
The Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson. The Rock.
No, not that. The Rock.
The original Rock.
That
Yes.
would have been better if it's like, wow, you've been working out.
Transform to the Rock.
No.
You are swole.
Well, Rock Hudson wasn't a little guy.
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean,
That's true. That's true. That's true.
But it would have been. I think it would have been fun if
Yeah,
it was.
if it was the Rock. Well, maybe if they remake it, they can throw the Rock in. But basically, his as a part of his reassignment, he not only is reassigned to an entirely new body and voice, and he's also reassigned to the West Coast, and he is given this again perfectly perfect. Sort of Malibu home right on the coast with a pool, with new friends. He's given an opportunity to explore something that he had always wanted to explore, but never had the guts to explore as a New York banker, and that is his artwork. And he eventually meets a beatnik woman. And they sort of start to fall in love, but he also quickly realizes at the same time, and this is the ultimate cautionary tale of the grass is always greener. He really actually kind of liked his life in New York, even though it was incredibly mundane and boring. He starts to pine for that, and he decides to go back to the company and say, "Hey, could you reassign back into my original persona?" And they say, "Sure, we're happy to do that, but that you have to refer a friend or a family to the company that we can then reassign." And he eventually decides that he comes to the conclusion he doesn't really have anybody he can refer to the company. And so he is ultimately sacrificed in doing business with the company.
So Mike, what benefit does the company have for doing these reassignments?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about my own mortality and my own finances and everything. And effectively, the company takes a massive cut. So if you die, right? So if you were and you die, quote unquote, die, they take a hefty portion of your house, of your retirement savings, of all your liquid assets and your wealth. And I just kept thinking, like, I was thinking by today's standards, would this actually pencil out? Would it be possible to do? Like, how much would it really cost to do a reassignment of that?
I wouldn't be surprised if Donald Trump would be all in for this. He's gonna like, this body's wearing out.
Right.
I need something that has more hair.
Oh God.
Yeah,
and
let's
tans a little better.
No,
I think it's already happening. On top of
I'm going to
that.
transfer into my daughter's body, and I don't know. This is, but I think you had talked about this previously.
Yeah.
But there are strains of Get Out here, right? So,
for sure.
The transfer of
Infinity Pool, Get Out. Yeah, this is. I likened it to, and if you've seen the film before, this will certainly resonate with you. But for me, it felt like a very long episode of The Twilight Zone with a big punchline at the end. Right. The film is punctuated, of course, with Rock Hudson, being wheeled out in a gurney down a long, dark hallway, screaming, essentially realizing
right.
he is going to die.
Right.
And
he's given half his wealth away at the same
time. He's given half of his wealth away, and his wife is now a widower, and his daughter has
right.
no.
But this is sort of the chase of eternal youth by way of getting. I want a better body.
Right. Yeah.
I want a better soul. Getting all that kind of stuff. So getting it's like I want to recharge, and I want to keep my personality, but this old frame is wearing out. It's like I kind of have a developing an arthritic shoulder, and my vision's gotten wonky. I got to go find but do they actually find they find a volunteer, or do they have like a scrapyard of people who they go, We're going to assign you to this, but can you pick and choose? You go, ooh, I like that model.
No. You're essentially in your same body. It's just your fingerprints, your face, your voice is sort of recast. But you are effectively in the same body. Yeah. The referral piece of it is that they just need to keep people in the queue, and they need to keep the money coming in to make it a functioning business, I think. But yeah, it's a great film. It really stands out as this just incredible 1960s gem. I think we talked about how like it plays like a film from the 1970s. It plays like like Five Easy Pieces or something like that, where it is kind of this sort of dark, brooding film, but it's a horror film at its core, and it is an interesting one, and it is deservedly in the Criterion Collection.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah, I was not familiar with Seconds.
Yeah, got to see Seconds. Got to see Seconds. Yep. And anything that John Frankenheimer does is generally pretty brilliant.
So. My first offering was scrolling through the Criterion catalog and realizing that Guillermo del Toro's entire catalog, minus Shape of Water, was in there. So I went back, and I know we in previous conversations surprised you guys that I had not seen The Devil's Backbone.
Yes.
So this is. I think if Kronos hadn't already established it, Devil's Backbone sort of puts Guillermo del Toro at the top of storytellers within the horror / fantasy genre.
Oh yeah,
this is
for sure.
He's
horror.
He's talking about the horrors of the Spanish Civil War, which was this brutal conflict that sort of has gotten lost to history because it was adjacent to World War II.
Right.
And Spain was neutral, but they fought amongst themselves, and so they had a big killing off, and it was fascists versus communists, and so it was fighting tooth and nail. So that's the background of the story. But what we have here is a boy named Carlos, who wonderfully played by Fernando Tielve, I think is how you say his name. Apologies if I messed that up, Carlos. But he is brought to an orphanage by a soldier for the communist forces, and Carlos doesn't know his father has died in the fight, and so he just believes he's being that this is his teacher and mentor, and they're visiting because that the mentor was dropping off gold to be stored by the madam of the orphanage, not madam. That's probably what I'm gonna say.
The matron.
The matron.
It's a different orphanage.
That's called a brothel.
Kind of
No, this is it's not that kind of an orphanage.
The Miss Hannigan of this orphanage.
The caretaker. There you go.
Well,
The Daddy Warbucks.
Who is she? Well, that different kind of context. That's awful. But she is this stubborn caretaker with who lost part of her leg during the war. I'm presuming that it was a war situation, and so she's storing gold in a safe, and this becomes important because as the war closes in on the orphanage, they have to make a decision on should I stay or should I go?
Right.
And there's the longest standing orphan at the compound is a handsome young man named Jacinto, who in many other circumstances could have been the leading man.
Right.
But he turns out to be an antagonist because he feels like he never got his fair shake.
Right.
There's one of the assistants at the orphanage is a young woman, and the two of them want to go off and get a house out in the country, and he figures that getting the gold will be their way to to freedom in
Right.
that way. At the cost of just gutting the fortunes of all the kids who are in the orphanage. But it soon becomes clear that he doesn't care. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, Carlos is having to go work his way up through the social circle of a bunch of orphan kids. And there's a bully kid who, who's older and bigger, and it's like the Darwinian kind of, it's like, I'm bigger and stronger than you guys, but he's not as smart.
Right.
And what you find out is that Carlos is a very empathic and understanding how to play the pecking order, and so he will take the hits, take the like if things go wrong, he will take the blame for mischief that wasn't his doing, and he earns the respect of all the other little boys.
Right.
What this comes down to eventually is that there's a ghost, a little boy ghost, and who is seen infrequently through the first half of the movie, but starts as things start ramping up. The rest of the little boys realize that this ghost was a little boy who had been murdered by Jacinto, who was trying to crack the safe, and this little boy had seen him trying to crack the safe, and he got thrown against a column and cracked his skull open, and in a panic, Jacinto roped him up, put him in the bottom of the open well at the bottom of the orphanage, and drowned him. Needless to say, the little boy Santi was not so happy about that and is going to exact some revenge. It all comes. So what this is to say is that it's a complex, multi-layered story that all
as all his stories are,
as
all his stories are,
and it feels grand and big and emotional. And this was by all accounts, through the Criterion voiceover or the critics, was that this was his most personal, most involved movie. He's done several since that time, but I think that that you definitely feel the heart in this movie. It's horror, traditional horror light, but the horrors of war, and the third act chaos and just raw bloodshed, where characters you love are getting wrecked.
Yeah.
And it's greed, it's the war, it's a ghost, and it's an unexploded bomb that represents the potential energy of exploding at any time that this it can go from potential to kinetic energy in mere moments, and it's sitting in the mix everybody, and you get the metaphorical explosion
right
at the end of the movie. It is, again, master class.
I think all of his films are sort of like lowercase h horror. You're not going to find like massive jump scares. You're not going to find a lot of gore. Mm-hmm. This to me felt like I think this is for me. This is one of the more horror of all of his horror films.
I agree.
And as we talked about earlier, this would have fit perfectly, would have paired very nicely with all of our selections earlier this summer when we talked about
Gothic horror,
because this is a very, very gothic feeling film as well.
All of Del Toro's films have that tendency,
right?
And sort of because of his love of lore and legend, and there's essentially, it's a castle, right, and a ghost, and so you have all these kinds of things, and a lot of exposition storytelling, but in this one he does it by way of the actions of all the characters, of how he spins the story out. There's not a ton of talking in it.
Right.
But it's just.
And you know what else is exciting? This is one of his shortest movies too, at an hour and 46 minutes.
That's right. Yeah, just wait.
Out of his entire catalog, this is one of the shortest films he ever did.
We will see how he does with Frankenstein, because that is a short movie, and he doesn't know how to do short movies very well.
No.
But it is a sit back.
Frankenstein's going to be like the friggin' Hobbit. We're just going to be like 3 movies with 9 hours of extras.
We decided to add a werewolf in here for a little bit of extra character flavor. So yeah,
Yeah,
this
a
is
little extra flavor.
I do hope he doesn't Kenneth Branagh the heck out of Frankenstein, though.
I don't think so. I think that we talked about the what was the movie the movie the really long movie that he did, which was
Nightmare Alley.
Nightmare Alley, which is definitely not. It's not horror. It's dark fantasy. But that thing was a run-on sentence. But it was grand. It told a great story. It was just like
It looked great too.
Yeah, looked beautiful.
Needed, I think, a little bit more self-control, a little bit more editing. Shout
Don't
out
we
though
all?
to Kim Morgan, who is the screenwriter for that. Scripting a great story. Kim, you could have used a little quick edit, but
That's right.
I went to high school with Kim, and she's good friends with Robert. And
Why
so
is she not on the podcast? That's what I want to know. Why is she not
Kim,
on the podcast? You have a direct connection to a Hollywood big shot, and they are not on the podcast.
She's reached the top shelf of the
Get her on the podcast. 2025, Kim Morgan will be on the podcast, and we are going to talk Nightmare Alley.
Yes. Well, yeah.
We'll be nice about it, Kim. We promise.
Because Eric does not like your film. I, however, loved it.
I did not say that. I actually very much enjoyed it.
Your old high school chum hated your movie. All right, Liz, what do you got next?
Okay. When this film premiered in 1997 at the Cannes Film Festival, a third of the audience walked out of the screening, and film critic Jacques Rivet called it a complete piece of shit. But in 2019, Criterion disagreed and gave Michael Haneke's Funny Games a Criterion release.
Nothing funny about Funny Games.
No.
Nothing funny about Funny Games. It's the first film that I really remember watching and going like, having an oh shit moment, a la Hereditary or a la The Lodge.
Yep.
Just where you're so shocked that this just happened on the screen. And I think one of the reasons is this film is famous because it breaks the fourth wall. Paul, who is this is a home invasion film where Peter and Paul, two Austrian, 20-somethings, wreak havoc on the lives of a couple at their lake house on a weekend and torture them in the most sadistic ways. And we, the audience, are privy to all that and privy to Paul and Peter's thinking as they speak to us. And Michael Haneke said that he was not intending to make a horror film. He just wanted to deliver a message about violence in the media by making an incredibly violent but otherwise pointless film. And that is his killers. They are committing pointless violence in the vein of just because you were here and because you were home and because we're bored.
Right.
So, Funny Games is not going to be for everyone.
No.
But if this
not
sounds appealing to you, it's one of the best horror movies ever made. It spawned a remake starring Naomi Watts and Tim Roth. That's not really worth your time unless you can't read subtitles. That would be the only reason to watch it. Michael Haneke made the movie. Like
Tim
he
Roth
remade his own
completist.
movie.
I think
or a Tim Roth completist.
This is kind of like Goodnight Mommy. Just get
bleak nihilism.
Bleak, exactly. And
I think it's way more bleak.
It's much more savage than
I was going to say the film that it most resembles for me is Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer because it's so it's so visceral, but it's so voyeuristic at the same time where you're sitting there, you're watching all this stuff happen, and there's not really a plot per se.
Right.
You just get to sit and watch all this brutality happen.
Yep. It came up actually in the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival that I'm currently attending.
What?
I think Aaron Moorhead in his keynote speech name dropped
Funny Games.
Funny Games as the bleak, something having to do with it's like whether it was like cosmic horror or not, and about the sheer brutality of the. Because he said this was a counterexample to what cosmic horror is because it's very personal and it's just
sure. Yeah.
And but he great admiration for it. And I think Kill List was also discussed, and these kinds of things were.
Because he's a smart guy.
Yeah,
That's right.
so
That's right.
All right, Funny Games.
Funny
is my
Games.
selection.
on the Criterion Collection.
Yeah.
It is. It is in physical media, and it is also streaming on the Criterion channel with many of the extras from the Blu-ray and DVD available to stream there as well.
All right. Okay. The next film on the list is a film that received praise from George Lucas, from Ray Harryhausen, from Sam Raimi. And in fact, many people would say that Sam Raimi, in the context of The Evil Dead, 110% ripped off this film. This is a movie called Equinox.
There you go.
Which is also one of the greatest horror posters of all time.
It's like Richard Corbin looked like was involved.
Yeah. It's an incredible horror poster. But this is a 1970 supernatural horror film directed by Jack Woods, and the film is no more complicated than this. 4 young people picnicking in a California canyon stumble upon an ancient book, Evil Dead, used to conjure demons, Evil Dead, and they soon unleash a plethora, how's that for Criterion? Plethora of evil creatures, Evil Dead. This, of course, has become like absolute midnight movie fodder during its theatrical run, but it's somewhat, you would say, economical, but also kind of sophisticated use of stop motion, special effects, and animation.
Because Dennis Muren.
Oh, right. Yeah, Dennis Muren. And they had... He was the second director. The director was Jack Woods, but I was going to say because Dennis Muren, but also because they had no money.
No, well, I mean, the great thing, the backstory. Did you? Because you and I both watched this. This is my backup.
Okay. There you go.
But the Muren, who, for those of you who don't know, is the top dog at Industrial Light and Magic.
Right.
Because he did the battle chess scene in Star Wars. He did the animated the Imperial Walkers in Empire Strikes Back.
Yep.
He did Jurassic. He eventually did the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. He did the spaceships from Close Encounters.
Yep.
He is the direct descendant from the Ray Harryhausen school, but he started out as a backyard guy who did stuff in the back, and he went to the famous what's the guy who did Famous Monsters of Hollywood. There's a famed and much beloved author who boosted his career, and in that way he gave the blessing to Equinox, put that movie on the map for whatever run it had. It was a nothing budget. It was
right.
And but the animation is Ray Harry. It's like a 17-year-old guy doing Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah.
Was crazy.
Well, and the other incredible thing is the director Jack Woods. He only directed this film. This was the only film he directed. Yep. He kicked around in Hollywood doing sound editing and set design stuff, and he did like a million other things over the course of his career, but he never got another cut at directing a film, which is kind of incredible considering what a huge impact this had on people like George Lucas and Sam Raimi and others. And I mean, it is an incredibly economical film, and the thing that's funny about it is you can even though it is a Criterion Collection film, you can find it, gosh darn, everywhere on the internet. You can find it on archive.org. You can find it on YouTube. You can find multiple copies on YouTube. You can find crappy copies on YouTube. You can find 4K restoration copies on YouTube.
Because it never had a major distributor.
But it is, Equinox is something else. And I do encourage folks to see it only because if there was no Equinox, there would be no Evil Dead.
Yeah, no, there was definitely the Necronomicon was in pretty good shape for being a 1,000-year-old book in this thing, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, did you recognize one of the actors who went on to greater fame?
No, which one?
Frank Bonner is.
Oh yeah.
He's WKRP in Cincinnati.
That's right.
He was Herb.
Yeah. Herb Tarlick.
salesman.
Herb Tarlick. Yeah.
So I was like, because they started talking. I was watching the outtakes from it, and
Right.
they were talking to Frank Bonner, and he goes, "Well, before I went to WKRP in Cincinnati, I was like, oh,
It's Herb Tarlick.
Yeah, he was like,
If you're of a certain age, you will know Herb Tarlick.
Yeah. So yeah, I had a soft spot for as soon as I saw that Equinox was on that list. I was like, no, it's a Criterion.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but it was because it's influential. It was this is a so bad it's good movie with the effects of it's like it was again the kinds of things that the flying devil that they had and and also the tricks of perspective. There's a giant. There's also a tentacle monster. And it's and this is like the kind of thing that you want to do in your the practice if you're a little kid who wants to do monster movies. He actually made it, and then he turned into like one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
Which was crazy.
Yep.
So I've got and I think I thought Liz was going to bring this one up when she was talking about before she said Tetsuo. I'm doing another J horror movie that we haven't. I don't know what we talked about much at all.
Oh.
This is Cure.
Oh,
from
yeah.
1997.
Love a detective film.
Yes.
Eric, you're surprising me today.
Eric's just class.
Yeah,
just class today.
This is
all
classy.
about
This is
class.
classy, Eric.
Yeah, I really kind of dug into this one because we just recently did Ian and I did a discussion about 1999, a 25-year rollback, and we had talked about Audition, which was and then and in my opinion 99 was a hinge year because it all of a sudden Japanese horror had been accumulating a number of important films that were really scary as Hollywood was running out of ideas, and so you had things like Blair Witch, which changed a lot of rules, and I think things like Cure changed a lot of rules because people said, "Hey, have you been seeing what they've been doing over in Japan?"
Right.
And this is Kiyoshi Kurosawa, no relation to Akira Kurosawa, but a famed director in his own right.
Sure.
And this is very much. It feels like, and this there were one of the other things about the late '90s. A lot of police detective procedural thrillers,
right?
That would
I thrive in the late 90s.
This is in the Liz zone.
Get me back to the late 90s.
Yes, for so many reasons.
Yes. Back in our primes, as it were. We're not over the hill quite yet. We're almost there, but we got a few more. But this is a story about a series of murders that have been happening that are really grisly. That they're finding these people with who've been killed and then mutilated after being killed by doing a cross, like a knife slash in the form of a big X across their necks, and. So it felt it had a lot of Seven vibes, and then you had a great sort of Holmes and Watson detective combination with Koji Yakusho, who plays Detective Takabe, really charismatic, kind of a hard-bitten detective whose wife has got some mental illness issues, and that plays strongly in this film because eventually you find this amnesiac who's this willowy, long-haired guy with a pencil-thin mustache, and he talks in these weird riddle-like things. Like he instantly forgets. Like you tell him what your name is, and you ask what the name is again, or what do you do, or where am I, or what day is it? And no matter how many times you tell this guy, he can't remember it.
Right.
But then he will do something which is, tell me about yourself, and then he will that hypnotism comes into play, and so he becomes this really cryptic figure because after he visits somebody, there is a horrible death and mutilation that seem to come pretty much out of nowhere. That's like people killing their loved ones, people killing, their colleagues. There was a doctor who just butchers one of her own patients for no apparent reason, and so the detectives are in scramble mode, and they haven't because they don't have an individual that they keep on finding individuals who are responsible for it, who confess to it. But what's the link? And
Right.
that is the key thing. And then it comes down to they eventually determine that there's some sort of a hypnotism or the power of suggestion. And it's almost like this guy, Mr. Miyama, who is played by Masato Hagiwara. Creepy as all fuck. This guy, and he's so frustrating because he that everybody who talks to him. And it was like, just slap this guy around. He's playing with you. But he is kind of there's a lot of ambiguity in this movie where you're not sure if he is whether he's possessed,
right,
or whether he's just crazy, or what. But he becomes it leaves the impression that he is a murderous muse.
Right.
That he is an enabler who drops in suggestions. It's like, you really don't love her, kinds of things. They never actually, these are all inferences that I'm making.
Yeah.
Sure.
They never really tell you.
Right. What's going on. And it's beautiful that way. And so it leaves a lot for interpretation. And since it's a Criterion Collection, I watched, they were talking with the lead actor, Koji Yakusho, and he was saying that Kurosawa said, "Don't read too much into the plot. You just do the lines. It's supposed to be ambiguous. I want people to interpret this for themselves." So I really appreciate the ambiguity that Cure presents, and I think, Mike, you were mentioning that he also directed Pulse.
Right. Couple years after the fact. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
This is all part, in my mind, of the J-horror revolution of the late 90s.
Yep.
So you had Audition, you had Ichi the Killer, you have you had Ju-on, you have Ringu. So all of these films, so it's hugely influential. And a lot of these are all, the Criterion Collection is actually leaning in heavily on foreign films. As a lot of their stuff. I think that's part of their mission statement. I think that they they're a very internationally focused collection of films, and this is, we love our J horror. I think and Liz in particular, your love of the combination of J horror and
the detective
and the
movies.
detective,
They do it very well, and this is one of the best. He did a couple other ones that he did that people would be familiar with is Seance, Charisma,
Seance,
and Bright Future. That was the one with the jellyfish. That was a cool one.
Yeah, all right.
So, and he's still working. He's making stuff.
Yeah, I
made one in 2024.
Yeah, because I think that the Cure Criterion, I think that they released it in 2020, and so that's when some of these interviews were done, and they were. It looks like they're guys who are about our age, or Mike and my age, in the 50s. This is. I will definitely be keeping an eye out for more films from Kurosawa in the future. The older Kurosawa, the old man Kurosawa, is long gone.
Yeah. This is Kiyoshi. Well, this one is now an older Kurosawa. He's almost 70.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah,
so
he's been making movies since 1985.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, that would do it.
Yeah.
That would do it.
So Liz,
but the 90s were his heyday.
What's your last one?
Okay, I'm going to do something. I'm definitely talking about a movie we've never talked about before because I am going to go straight thriller. This is not a horror movie.
Oh.
There is some blood in it.
Okay.
But this movie gives me every feeling I'm looking for when I want a horror movie and does it almost better than most horror movies can do. This movie is described by Wendy Ide at The Guardian as audacious, thrilling, and exhausting.
Ooh.
It was A24's highest grossing film until it was surpassed by Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And this is 2019's Uncut Gems. This is a
with the
100%
the
thriller.
Sandman.
The Sandman and Kevin Garnett and Eric Bogosian Judd Hirsch and Indina Menzel and Lakeith Stanfield. It's an enormous cast. The Weeknd's in it.
Okay.
But yeah, this movie, kinetic is the only way to describe it. This movie is so anxious. All the characters and the feeling that you get watching this movie, you're going to be like bouncing your feet up and down, like white knuckling through this until the explosive, incredibly satisfying ending where you get to like release this energy. So this is made by the Safdie brothers, Josh and Benny Safdie. And it is it's Adam Sandler plays, this is how you describe it. Adam Sandler delivers an almost maniacally embodied performance as Howard Ratner, a fast-talking New York jeweler and gambler in relentless pursuit of the next big score. When he comes into possession of a rare opal, it seems that his ship has finally come in. As long as he can stay one step ahead of a wife who hates him, a mistress who can't quit him, and a frenzy of loan sharks and hitmen closing in on him. And it says, Uncut Gems give us one of the great characters in modern cinema. It's a tragic hero of competing compulsions on a shoot-the-moon quest to transcend his destiny. So I promise horror fans, if they will give Uncut Gems a chance, you will have the feeling that you get and you are looking for when you are looking to be scared and looking for a great horror movie. It's one of the most exciting movies I've ever seen. I'm not really a fan of the other things the Safdie brothers have done because they do kind of have this, anxious, cringy, mumbly aesthetic, but not for this film. It works in this film, and I freaking love it. And I challenge any horror fan to watch this movie and say they don't get the emotions and the adrenaline that they. I have chosen
Fascinating.
it. It's definitely a thriller. And
Fascinating.
It is a damn good movie.
Well, it is. I thought it was really good. I don't know if I'd go damn good. I thought it was really well done.
It's damn good. I love this.
Yeah, because Adam Sandler, he really does carry this. This whole film is on his back, and he plays just the most hopeless, sad sack character you could ever imagine.
Yeah, this was his big dramatic performance. Like,
well, he had done Punch Drunk Love, another Safdie brothers movie that also has a Criterion release. So Adam Sandler has two fancy ass films.
No, but not Billy Madison. Or,
I don't know how Billy Madison
or the Water
doesn't
Boy
have one,
or
Happy Gilmore. Like that deserves one.
But he did. I think he's sort of turning a corner where he's. I think concentrating on doing. I think he's now. I think he's proven capable of doing really high-end dramatic fare. And this is...
Oh, I mean, Punch Drunk Love was almost 20 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's done some stuff that other than Hubie Halloween. Which is where I thought you were going, because this is a horror podcast. I thought you were going.
Criterion Collection.
Thought you were going
Hubie Halloween.
I thought you were going.
That was
Hubie
a
Halloween.
dumb and fun movie.
It was a dumb and fun movie. But yeah, I mean, he's been doing this. He's been doing this for a while. I mean, he even did that one where he plays the basketball recruiter that
on Hulu, I think.
Came out a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, this is definitely something that he has explored continuously throughout his career, is the dramatic side. Weirdly, he pulls it off incredibly well.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Tom Hanks was almost strictly a comic actor until his mid-30s.
Yeah.
Then he did Philadelphia, and then it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Well, and I also think like what horror fiends are always looking for is the feeling, the fear.
Mm-hmm,
we want to be scared. We want that.
The adrenaline rush.
And in this, you're chasing a rush. And that's what this character is doing with his gambling and things like that. He's chasing a rush. And that's what this film gives you. The feeling of chasing a rush. So I think
that's an
on
interesting
the insides,
take.
it's a horror film.
I support your
terrifying.
Your interpretation of
hypothesis.
Horror.
There you go.
Yeah, you know what? I love a good thriller.
Yep.
I think our fans do too, and they also just like good movies.
Horror is a big umbrella, and everybody's welcome.
Yep.
Get under here, Adam Sandler.
including Hubie
I'd actually like to see Adam
Halloween.
Sandler in a straight up
horror movie.
Straight up horror, yeah.
Straight up horror movie. I'd love it.
Because it's. I had a discussion with again, another H.P. Lovecraft thing. Was talking with a bunch of the short film directors, and they were all commenting about how horror. We talked about horror comedies, and that they want to see more straight comedians get into horror because a lot of them bring their own damaged goods when it comes to why they're comedians. Is that they have some internal, a lot of them have internal pain that they're working through. It's like, hey, you can do that in horror too.
Yeah.
So
Will Forte. All right, back to your regularly scheduled horror podcast. This is a film. This is a film that was released in 1972, and this is Sisters. And I know I've talked about this in the past. I know I talked about Sisters in the context of when we did the director sampler, and this is Brian De Palma starring Margot Kidder and Charles Durning. This is, to me, the high. I know this was several years. This was 4 years before Brian De Palma did Carrie. This was many, many years before he did Raising Cain. But to me, this is the absolute pinnacle. I mean, he jumped out the gate with this movie. I know it wasn't his first film, but it was really his first big horror film. And a lot of people obviously compared this to. Because he, as I've said before on the podcast, he in many ways out Hitchcock, and in this case, he really out Hitchcock. And this is a film that follows a French-Canadian model, Margot Kidder, who is separated from her conjoined twin, and who is suspected of having committed a brutal murder. Who is witnessed by. The brutal murder is witnessed by a next door neighbor who is a la Rear Window and the Hitchcock film from what year was Rear Window? 59, 58, 59, 60, somewhere in there. Same thing as Rear Window, but it's he is the newspaper reporter, the next door neighbor, witnesses this murder and becomes absolutely obsessed with, and in fact becomes complicit with the murder. The film explains itself in the latter, and I don't think I've talked about this element of the film, and I've never really quite seen a film ever do this before or since. But the last third of the film is a sort of drug-induced, hypnotic dream state where he lays out the entire exposition of the film in this drug-induced, hypnotic dream state. And it's like nothing I've ever really seen before. And every time I watch Sisters, I watch this scene or this series of scenes that they show at the end of the film, and I go, okay, I got to go and read the description of what this film is about.
Because this was a Criterion Collection, did they have any backup material that was able to assist you in sort of your reinterpretation of this?
I didn't, but I did go to Wikipedia, and I will read you the description that Wikipedia provided, because I think it's probably one of the most clear and concise descriptions of what the film is really about. And it kind of... there's no other way. There's no other way to really explain it other than to read this description, which is Danielle and Dominique, who are orphan conjoined twins. As adults, Dominique quickly becomes the burden to the more outgoing Danielle, who is married to a doctor at this facility, Emile. After several sexual encounters, yes, while they are conjoined, Dominique is drugged unconscious against her will by Emile at Danielle's request so that they can have sex uninterrupted while they're again conjoined. Danielle becomes pregnant with the child, and then Dominique snaps after finding out that, and then she stabs her in the stomach to kill the unborn child, and then Emile, the doctor, decides to unconjoin the two sisters. Yeah, it's that weird. It's that bizarre. Many people, McKinnon from the Boston Globe, posited the question, did Brian De Palma intend this to be a parody or a straightforward psycho-type movie? If it's to be taken as a tongue-in-cheek romp, it doesn't work. And if it's meant as a horror film, it's run-of-the-mill. George McKinnon, if you're still alive, you are wrong. This is the most Hitchcock of all the Hitchcock movies ever made, and it wasn't even made by Hitchcock. It was, of course, made by Brian De Palma.
But who is a Hitchcock disciple.
He's a Hitchcock disciple, and I totally encourage folks to see this because, like, I would start. In fact, I would say if you're going to start anywhere in the Brian De Palma collection, start with Sisters and then work your way on down from there. Don't start with Carrie. Don't start with Raising Cain. Start with Sisters and then work your way on down the list because this is the most Hitchcock of all the De Palma films.
All right.
Conjoined twins.
Conjoined twins. Who doesn't
pregnant,
love
pregnant murderous conjoined twins?
Who doesn't love that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of Hitchcockian, I'm picking a movie from that seminal year of 1960. This is the same year, if you recall. This is the year that Psycho dropped and Black Sunday, Eyes Without a Face. This is the push your limit one. And no movie probably had as rough a reception as Peeping Tom.
Oh, yeah. Love Peeping Tom.
Peeping Tom is like Freaks, like The Thing, was just, people couldn't handle it.
Right.
And now it seems kind of quaint. But, you know, the backstory of this is that there is a young man who's a focus puller at a London film studio, and he's on this. By day he's a focus puller. By night he's a murderous psychopath, and but he is a very likable character. He is not without honor, but he's also. He is a voyeur. He's essentially creating his own snuff film. Right. Off on it.
Like shot by shot by shot.
Yes, and he's
like single frame.
And, no, he's doing. He's got a reel to reel or probably film. Like a I don't know 30 millimeter film but he has a spear at the end of his tripod. And what he is looking to do is capturing the moment of abject fear of when he kills usually beautiful young women. Right. And he because he is allowed into certain spaces because he is also on the side in order to make money. He also does essentially page 2 girls. Right. Right. Taking pictures, for those of you not familiar, and I don't know if it's still a thing. I don't even know if they still have those tabloids in London. Chris Cleland, you can confirm this, where it's like you know that there was a great quote. It was like where this like a corner store owner who makes his living off of selling tabloids. He goes, so Mark, who is our psycho killer. So Mark, you know what I always say? It's the it's the under or the quote. I'm going to kill myself on this one. It's about under the cover without a topless or I just totally botched that. I will try and dig.
Let's go back to pregnant conjoined twins.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that there's he's taking pictures on the side, and then he takes his opportunities when he finds it to kill off prostitutes and strippers and at the same time he's fallen in love with this really charismatic young woman who is Helen, played by Anna Massey, and she is one of the tenants in the house that he owns, and she falls for him. She finds him very interesting because he's it's like film and he's mysterious, very kind to her and all the kinds of things that actually make you sort of attach yourself to Mark. And at the same time, at night, he just goes out there and he spears these poor, unfortunate girls, catching them in their last moments and putting them to film so he can watch it upstairs. And this did not go over well with the press. And in fact, this was... So Michael Powell, who is the director, he was considered alongside David Lean and Alfred Hitchcock. He had done The Red Shoes. He'd done Honeymoon. He did Black Narcissus.
Yeah.
He did all these movies. He was held in high esteem. And then he did this, and then he became persona non grata. That they said this was too much, and his career really took a nosedive after this. But in the late 90s, before he died, Peeping Tom sort of became propped up as, hey, this really was an important film. It was really well done. I mean, he is a director of, because the story was great. The look was just the color was just
the color. I was just going to say the color in the film is incredible.
And but the backlash here. Let's see. So one Catherine Lejeune of The Observer said, "It's a long time since a film disgusted me as much as Peeping Tom," calling it a beastly film. And then Derek Hill for the London Tribune said, "The only real satisfactory way to dispose of Peeping Tom would be to shovel it up and flush it swiftly down the nearest sewer."
Woo!
So they were
hot takes. 1960 hot takes.
And whereas Psycho became an international sensation,
right?
Was pretty much blacklisted.
Yeah,
and it also featured the first British film to have full frontal female nudity.
Right.
In one of the opening sequences, and but it also had, it was the magazine shop was like full of what was all over the streets in London at the time,
right?
Was him to sell papers. So, it is a testament to the changing times.
Mm-hmm.
But it clearly, this, paired with Psycho, makes for a fascinating turning point in, and then allowed someone like Herschel Gordon Lewis,
sure,
to do what he wanted to do.
Well, to take it a step further, yeah, for sure.
So this is.
I think it's a great film. I think it holds up super duper well. It's super duper well, and it looks so beautiful.
But I think that what sells it is the relationship between Mark and Helen.
Yep.
And because there are moments where you're really rooting for Mark to get the girl and all this kind of stuff, but you also know that, because he also swears that he will not. He puts Helen on a different level, that he won't. He doesn't. She wants him to film her, but he only films those who he's going to kill.
Right.
And so he says, "I can't do that. I won't. Right. I won't." And he's kind of a mousy dude, and there's also a downstairs neighbor who's more of the classic leading man of the time. So anyways, it's totally worth checking out, and then you can find that quote that I wanted to do by watching the movie.
There you go.
Because I now feel quoteless.
All right, I'm going to take us out of here with a tagline, a long-ass tagline from Equinox. See 4 teenagers fight a devil cult. See the ring that enslaves and destroys. See the symbol that defies the hosts of hell. See the unleashed power of the 1,000-year-old book. And go see Equinox before you see Evil Dead, because this is really Evil Dead.
Sam Raimi, rip off.